There is no greater time for our faith's mind to experience creation's present benevolence than when our faith is young, and this affirmed by how it says, "When Israel was a child, then I loved him." From the moment our heart discerns within it a peculiar fondness for the living God's will, it is well for us to drop every belief and do the counsel, "Seek ye out of the book of the Lord and read." An experimental faith is to add sober understanding to our faith's affection. What separates the child from the adult is that while the adult perceives a set map of knowledge for a routine to grow comfortable with, the child, having no set map, is curious about all things for developing a map of understanding. This continuously evolving map is perpetually challenged by the child, providing them the opportunity to gather information together for shaping the way they view and interact with their world. This is why it says, "Except ye be converted, and become as little children, ye shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven." The eyes of our faith are never to grow dull. Should our faith ever enter into old age, seeing as how we have received a commandment from the Father, it is a sign of negligence towards creation's present commandment. If we honor this commandment, our faith's years will never experience anything contrary to a fresh and lively vigor, which is why it says, "Forget not my law, but let thine heart keep my commandments, for length of days and long life and peace shall they add to thee." Seeing as how the Spirit giveth life, and seeing as how a spirit hath not flesh and bones, we cannot expect a tangible or sensual belief on God's Son to suffice for the promised life. Now because wisdom giveth life to them that have it, we must understand the Son is a body of wisdom casting forth a life current to the doer of it, which is why it says, "Let the word of Christ dwell in you richly in all wisdom." The everlasting life promised by the Son is an everlasting flow of wisdom given by the knowledge of the Son of God, which knowledge is the law of the Spirit of life. Our faith is to experience this law's higher inward learning. When the living God's chief minister fulfilled the will of this commandment, he said, "I know that his commandment is life everlasting." This commandment is the Bible's wisdom for the maturation of our faith's mind. The spirit of our mind retains understanding only as it personally discerns creation's commandment. Through this commandment, the conversation's heart has material to prove, for encouraging faith's developing hope on the living God's will and science. Our faith must receive every opportunity to form a solid body for the good of our personal and devotional understanding. If it should lack training, it will devastate the entire structure of our being. Personal faith meets its end in religious tradition because an uneducated self regulates the person, and self is naturally opposed to any challenging change or disposition. To get to our faith, and to help apprise us on the character of its body, the living God created a commandment for the resurrection and reformation of our inward parts, which is why it says, "Thou desirest truth in the inward parts, and in the hidden part thou shalt make me to know wisdom." Our obedience to this commandment is the means whereby we may have knowledge to instruct the conversation's mind to better control self's thoughts and feelings. Because it is the Spirit that quickeneth, it is absolutely crucial to our faith's learning that our mind receives personal knowledge of creation science. The organs of our devotional faculties are to experience a resurrection in thought and in feeling, but in order to obtain this benevolence, the mind must consent to have the living God's wisdom existing within it. The force or substance of the living God's wisdom must enter into the mind if its will should find accomplishment within the person. It is therefore well to intimately care for our faith's progress, for when faith reaches old age, it is very difficult to settle the heart to care for the revelation of creation's science. Old age is reached by failing to hear and do creation's law. The mind must be cleansed of a false spiritual understanding. Our understanding of heavenly things must find itself washed by the instruction of life's commandment. Quiet meditation on the living God's words, apart from the noise of the religious world, will inform the mind of their intention. The goal is to obtain the decreed newness from the Bible's present spiritual understanding, and this cannot take place when the mind is undecided. Either we will quit all religious things to freshly approach the Bible for its wisdom, or we will keep all things to renounce the promised recuperation confined to its wisdom's mediation. Why should the religious world satisfy our faith? Doesn't the living God's chief messenger say, "I leave the world and go to the Father"? Doesn't this man's wisdom say, Forever, O Lord, thy word is settled in heaven. Isn't it counseled, our conversation is in heaven? For what reason do we lower the Bible's standard? We should not waste our faith's youth. When young in our heart of faith, when sincere in our intention to know the mystery of the Bible's doctrine, it is easier to simply pick up its words and learn for experiential knowledge. For then our faith's map may strengthen to direct our mind into our heart, and our heart into our mind, to convert their organs to stay on creation's saying. We are loved of the living God when simple in faith. Therefore, what is more important, the love of self and of the religious world, or the loving kindness of the Bible's spiritual understanding? It is our assignment to learn of and do the doctrine which is according to godliness, for the good of our faith. This is what matters, even the recovering and reforming of our lame mental and spiritual faculties. When our faith is young and our heart resembles the disposition of a child, the chance to know the living God's love increases, which edification alters the shape of our faith to encourage the honest transformation of our mind.